Hey, this is Robert Plank from DFYpodcast.com. I wanted to demo for you, this super cool tool called Descript that we use for podcast editing. My team at DFY Podcast, we use Otter to have a podcast recording transcribed. We use VD to get video clips made with captions. But me personally, when I'm doing something really quick on my own, I like to use Descript for a lot of these tasks. And what you do, basically, the workflow is you create a project. They call it, there's a workspace, and then you create a project. And then within a project, you have these sub-documents called compositions. And I really like to create a composition within a project in Descript and use it to edit a podcast. So what we can see here in this completely done podcast, if we zoom out a bunch here, there's this transcript that we're scrolling through right here, right? And these are the AI auto transcribed words that are spoken in the video. Now, I use Zoom for my podcast recordings, nice and easy. And then we can just import the video into this tool called Descript. And there's the transcript here. And you can see as we click on different parts of this transcript, a couple of things happen. In the middle, the time code, the timestamp changes. And then on the right here, the video changes. And you can easily jump to parts of a video and then see the transcript, or click on parts of the transcript and then likewise see the parts of the video. And then it has a really good audio cleanup functionality here called Studio Sounds. And then you can see from what I've created here is you can have it burn in transcripts, and you can have different scenes. So like in this case right here, there's a scene where it zooms in on just the guest I'm interviewing. And then further down as we scroll, there's a side by side. And then there is a burned in text here. And even within this project itself, we have things like reels, like quick clips. And you can see that we changed the video size. And then we even have in this other area here, we have the podcast audio only version where we've stripped out the filler words. So Descript, I love that feature that it strips out the ahs and the ums for you, so you can dump just that out. And so I even use Descript sometimes for learning. If I have a long video to watch, like a long YouTube or something, I will import it into Descript, and then I will watch it or scroll through to parts of the text that interest me. So that way I don't have to wade through a big old 30-minute long video. I can just jump to the fun parts. And then when we publish here, what I do sometimes as well, say I want to show a video to a friend. To be polite, I sometimes click on publish, and then I say anyone with the link can access, and we click on publish, and this will actually generate a hosted version. So just in a few seconds there, and we click on this link, we copy this, and if I go to this in a new window, drag it into here, you can actually have a hosted Descript copy of this video. Oh, it's still at 82% rendering, but you can see this is where you can give somebody a link like this, and they can watch a video just like an embedded YouTube, but it also jumps to parts of the script as well. So it's like a web version of Descript, and this is not quite at 100%, but you get the idea, right? That you can play this video and it will follow along the transcript, and you can give this hosted link to someone who even does not have the Descript program. So let me walk you through the workflow here that I go through to publish an episode, a podcast episode with Descript. So this is one of many tools that I use. And so this particular podcast that we're working on is called the Best-Selling Author Podcast, and we have folders and we have files, and we just have every episode is its own project. And then within that project, we have these sub-documents, the compositions. So that's like the reels, the YouTube version, and the podcast version. And so what I'm going to do here is I have a podcast that I just recently recorded today over Zoom. Just click the record button on Zoom, and that is episode number 71 here. It's 19 minutes. So what I will do here is I will right-click and rename, and then right-click and copy just to snatch the file name off of that. And then I'll go over here to Descript and go to my kind of best-selling author podcast workspace or folder, click on New Video Project, and then I will name it, let me paste, Control V. I'll name it what I'm going to name it here. And then I'll click on Add File, and then browse to the file I was just showing you. Did that work? Browse to the file. I had to restart my computer to get that to work. Hope that's not cheating. We'll try again. Add file. And we'll click it. Now it works. Just had to restart the good old computer. So let me remove myself for a moment. It said add file. I guess I'm back. Okay. We added the file here. And so what we do then is we left click on it and then click on insert into script. And then it asks us to transcribe. So now we will be transcribing this. And then we say there's 2 speakers, right? Because this is a person that I interviewed. And this is pretty cool because now it's detecting the speakers. And in a moment here, it will give me a clip of my side of the conversation and then my guest side. And it will ask me to name the people. And then it will give us a big long transcript of what I said and what he said. So let me just move my head over to the side here. Okay, so we say multiple speakers, identify speakers, get started. So you're saying that there's a difference between you can either, and then who's speaking.
The
is
problem
my
with the
guest
Y is it
name.
will not change.
Okay, so now we are going through the transcription process, and while we're at it, I'm also going to click down on the audio track and click on this studio sounds toggle. And that will use even more artificial intelligence and take out the background noise and do leveling and just make the audio on both sides sound really good. So far, we haven't done much. We just created a new project in Descript and we imported this video recording into it and then had it transcribe and then identified the speakers, and then clicked on this studio sound button to make the audio really good. And so it is getting to transcribing. And then once it's transcribed, then we can scroll through, like I showed you a moment ago, we can scroll through the transcript and we can fix up the transcript if needed, but also get some important podcasting information. We can scroll through easily and find things you might need for the podcast show notes, for like the URLs and descriptions and just key quotes and important timestamps when things are said, maybe even like a logical separating out of the blocks there, and maybe even something for some video clips. And so if this all sounds like a big long laundry list, you can just go to dfypodcast.com and my team can do all these things for you. They can create your podcast notes, create your video clips, edit your show, add in music, which I can show you in a minute as well, and then post it to your podcasting platforms and your social media platforms. But if you're the kind of person that says, I'm a little stubborn and I want to see how Robert does it first, then you can keep watching and see how we do it. So here we go. The transcript is done, and we can, as I showed, we can click through and jump to different parts of the show. And then you can even fix this up. So you can say this transcribed his name incorrectly. You can highlight this and click on correct. And then I forget how to type his name, Milan. It will fix that. And then we can say here, instead of Masidi, that's Masiti, and so on. And then you could even highlight part of the words here. And so if, for example, if I don't want to start with, hey, and welcome back to the podcast, I can click on backspace and just completely delete that. and then it will cut out that part of the video, and I can Control Z and undo, or I can do a strike through and it does the same thing, but then I can see what text was taken out. So that's interesting, right? That you can just adjust it in that way. But other than that, it created this whole long transcript. And as I said, we can scroll through and we can see that he mentioned his website here, Lawrence Milan, and Lawrence Milan. But I am not going to be publishing the full long transcript, so I won't be too anal retentive as far as the editing, but you could if you wanted to, right? You could fix up all this and edit it, but I am still going to, when it comes time later to publish, as is right now, publish and export the video for YouTube, the audio for a podcast, and then the subtitles to also import onto YouTube. But I want to do a little bit of research on this podcast first. I need to get some podcast goodies. I am pulling up a document, and if you have a podcast, I really recommend you have a document such as this, where you have the information about your show, right? You have your SEO title, you have your permalink planned out, you have the date of publication figured out, you have important resources, that's all good. And then even to have the summary or the podcast notes that will go on the accompanying blog post. And then even a lot of people forget about a promotional email. So that way, when you post to LinkedIn or tell your email list about this episode, you can just paste that right in as well, right? Lots of research can go into making your podcast the best that it can be. But then, for our purposes right here and right now, we want to grab the teaser timestamps and the important quotes. Now, the quotes, we want to have, these are about 20 or 30 seconds worth, 2 or 3 sentences that can go on to still graphics. And then what we call the video reels are more like 30 to 45 seconds. And so there's just different sized, bite-sized content. So you have the super short, like 20, 30 seconds for the images, and then more like 45 seconds-ish for the sort of TikTok and Instagram video clips. So let me add these sections. So for this episode, we call it, let's see, what's the number? 71, Lawrence Milan. And then I'll make this a heading 1. That way it's neatly organized in my table of contents here. And then we need to figure out what date it will be published. And then I have my rest of my kind of template right here, where I want to know the SEO title, and this is some other information that might not apply for you. So this is someone who's in a compilation book, and that's important. And then we have these sections for resources, teaser timestamps, quote, and email. So resources, teaser timestamps, quotes, and promo email. And then I will make these heading 2. That way it's also organized. And then we'll have that as one of our resources, and then his website, lawrencemilan.com. Okay, now we want to do 2 things now that we have this imported in Descript. Find these video clips, these teaser timestamps, and then some quotes. And I'm going to cheat a little bit because I have some pre-made templates already in Descript. But basically, we're going to look for some interesting sound bites. And this usually comes into play near the end and then maybe 2/3 of the way through. So here it says it doesn't matter where you are, just take the next step. This is from 1838 to 1856. So we'll say 1838 to 1856. And then this will be, and we'll fix this. Let's see. So what happened here is, I think me and him talked over each other a little bit. So we'll say add speaker label, Robert Plank, speaker label, and just correct that a little bit. And then So we'll highlight this. And then, so for this section here, we'll right click and duplicate to new composition. And this is something that's cool. We can take that, just that part of it, and we can use this to create a video clip in a moment. And what I would do in a moment is I have this template already figured out where I can create a reel, which is in a different size and has captions and it has a title here. And I don't want to waste half the video creating all that. So I'll just drop in the template I already have and we'll say, just take the next step. And then just take the next step. And then I can drag maybe we'll drag his picture like that, adjust the captions here, and then correct this a little bit. And this is where I care a little more about the words because I'm going to have burned in captions. Everyone is on a different phase instead of phase. Be able to click and correct, that's phase. And take out, delete the ands. You will experience something. And so what we can do just with this as is, just with this 16-second clip, I can click on Publish, Export Video, and this will dump out a 16-second video clip that I can use for social media right now, that I can use for TikTok right now. Is it? Oh, it's so fast it didn't even have to spin around for me, I don't think. See if it dumped it for me. Video downloads, take the next step. Oh, shoot. Generate, oh no, generated too many. Oh no, okay. I clicked it a bunch of times, didn't see, oh no. Okay, so I clicked a bunch of copies. And I clicked it a bunch of times, that's okay. Now let me, if we cancel all the duplicates, Okay. What it created here was this 2 megabyte video, and I double
Doesn't
click
matter
it.
where you are. Just take the next step. Everyone
And
is
so
on a
this is
different
something I
pace
can
and
post to
different-
social media. So that right there explains the power of being able to select a section and then duplicate it to a new composition and then export it. And I will switch back to the podcast that I'm currently editing because that phrase here, I am going to, let me put that aside for the moment. Okay, so I mark that as one of my teaser timestamps. That's just take the next step. And I wanted to grab 2 more for social media to use later. And I will actually bold this because I'm going to use this as the beginning teaser of the episode. So you'll see that in a minute. But let me just scroll through and find 2 other talking points from my guest. Empower yourself all the time. So starting at 1501, empower yourself all the time. And then me personally, I don't like to create a more than a minute long clip because we're using it for social media where a lot of these like YouTube shorts and TikToks and things, they only want you to go for a minute. So then here, I will also fix the speaker, fix that back to Lauren's. Okay. Oh, speaker label. That's Robert Plank's. Okay. Empower yourself, 8:15:01, and then 15:29 is the end of that. And then try to find one other thing he said as an answer to me. .31 to just try to find a good 1-minute clip. Why will not change your circumstances, 9:17 through 9:56. 9:17 through 9:56. And then we'll say that will do not focus on, or focus on your what, not your why. Okay. And then I like to go through and find some helpful quotes. So these will be even shorter phrases we're looking for. And when you don't have perspectives, crossing my path. So I'll right click and copy, and then place this text in the quotes, and I'll clean this up when I use it in a moment. And then I'll scroll through. So there's a story. You come to a crossroad. That's story. Story. Another story. Nearing the end. How do you control what you can control? Oh, is that? Definitely trim that down as well when we use that. And we don't care about the timestamps. We're just using this in the graphic. Let me find one last quote from this guest. I think near the end. Step. Here you're still. Okay. There we go. All right. So now we have these quotes that I will later on be jumping into Canva and creating a graphic, but I don't want to waste much of time showing that. But I do want to show how I make the podcast look really cool. And so we're going to grab this 1838 through 1856, hopefully wrap this up soon. 1838. Doesn't matter where you are. Did we say 1838 through 1856? 1856. So what I'll do here is I'll highlight the section I want, right click and copy, and then go to the very top here and make some space and then paste. And so isn't that amazing? You can copy and paste text, but then it will also bring the corresponding video along with it. Super cool. And then I'll correct some of this. Maybe we'll say instead of doesn't, this is it doesn't matter where you are. Everyone is on a different phase. So we're cleaning that up. And then, so here's what we have. So we have this clip of him, and then we jump into the podcast, and I'll even trim the part like that. So I think that's like the number one advantage to using Descript is just trimming parts of a video that you don't want just based on the text. So now here's where things are really going to get interesting, because we're going to separate this podcast into what are called scenes. And we're basically going to cut up the video into the following. I'm going to have just a quick teaser clip, and then I'm going to have a graphic showing like the cover of the podcast. And then we'll launch into it, and then I'll have his name and his URL and his job title. And then at the end of the podcast, I'm going to have his URL again, and then a graphic of the show again, plus some music. So all those different things. And so what we'll do here is we have this teaser clip. I'll do enter. And then you see here, there's like there's a plus and there's a slash. So this plus, look what you can add in here. You can add in burned in text on the screen, or captions, or like a countdown timer, or a progress bar, or shapes, or graphics, or any kind of file, video, audio, all sorts of things. So that's how you can add things in here. But then you can separate the pieces out with what are called scenes, which is what these slashes are. So I'm going to add a slash here, and on the timeline here, it added this in. And then I'm going to click over here as well. And then I'll add another scene And so here's what it did is this might be awkward if you're not really used to this tool yet. But if we scroll down on the timeline, here's our little teaser, right? Everyone is on a different path. And then now there's this 5-second nothingness where I'm going to fill in the graphic here to show the show starting. And then we'll launch into the podcast. And then then we'll be very careful. We'll click down in here and I'm going to shorten this to about a 1-second pause. And then what we'll do here is I will scroll through here and then right click and add a scene and then scroll to 45 seconds and then add a scene and then scroll at 1 minute and add a scene. This will make sense in a moment, but I basically want different things to happen for 15-second chunks as the show begins. And then I'm going to scroll all the way to the end, 1950, and then at 1850, I want something else to happen, which is to show his web address at the bottom. Okay, now that we've set things up, I want to figure out what we will name this show. And so I'll go to Publish and Export, then Transcript. And then here's where you can set all sorts of settings, export it as plain text. And then I want to include the time codes every paragraph break, and I'll export that file. And I'll use ChatGPT to generate some podcast SEO titles. So give me a moment here and get some prompts ready. I think I can just go and find that. Here's the transcript that it exported, right? With these timestamps and things like this. I can just go to edit, select all, right click and copy, and then go to ChatGPT and then just paste this in. And I think by default, ChatGPT will try to summarize this. And what I want to say is I want to make an SEO title. So I will put in this prompt, list me 10 possible clickbait titles for my YouTube video based on the above transcript, and see what it gives us. Life coach reveals the secret to overcoming adversity, overcome fear and anxiety, life's building blocks. I like practical steps to change, and I like this one, overcoming fear and anxiety, your path to a fulfilling life. So we'll go back to our document here, and the way I do the titles for this podcast in particular, I do the title and then a colon and then the guest job title and name. And so I'll do the same here. We'll say life coach Lawrence Milan, and then paste in overcome fear and see your path to a fulfilling life, overcoming fear and anxiety. Okay. And then I'll go really quick over to Canva. I told myself I wouldn't do this, but I'm going to just really quick jump in here. And what I like about Canva more than Photoshop is that it has pages, and I can just duplicate a page and kind of recreate it. So I'll take this page and take it all the way down to the bottom and create this. There we go. Oh, okay. Just took a second to catch up. And then we'll name it what we want to name it. And then zoom in and add the guest name, also a life coach. And then I will drop in let's see. I need to drop in his picture. So author photos. I'll just drag it right in there. Just that. Then I'll drag in cover. That. And I'll maybe turn it and adjust it like that. And then I will download download just that page. And then I'll also download like a lower quality version in a moment. Oh, come on. Okay. So now I've downloaded just this graphic. Oh, shoot. Need to fill in the title. Okay, one moment. Can't be easy, can it? All right. This is why we have it written down. Path to a fulfilling life. Coming fear and anxiety. Now we'll save it for real. Just current page. And then save the JPEG version. And then we can get to 50. Okay, so now that we've created a graphic, and we go over here, so we have our kind of teaser area, and then we can click on the plus sign finally, and go to add a file. And we'll add this PNG file, this graphic, add new layer, and then you see how, again, awkward and hard to read and hard to explain with a timeline as is, but we have so let's put it down in there. Maybe, fill it in. Okay, great. So now it will play this teaser, it will cut to the graphic, and then it will launch into the episode. And then what I can do is I can click on this initial scene here and click on these squares. And then I am going to whoops, shoot, didn't want to click. Trying to find the template. I don't have the template I want. Okay, so private. And so I basically previously got some of these scenes exactly the way I wanted them. And so I have this teaser at the beginning that just zooms in just at this guy. And I didn't want to have to do a bunch of adjusting in front of you. And I can adjust him a little bit. So that way that shows up okay. So the beginning part is zoomed just on him and has captions. And then also on this bottom layer here, it added some music. So I can drag the music here and it ramps up as he's finishing his sentence. And then it ends right here when it shows the graphic. I can just adjust that. And I can scroll over here. And remember how I created these kind of 15-second chunk scenes? I can click on this scene and then apply this other template where it placed his name here, Lawrence Milan. Jump to this other section where it applied his website. I'm going to say lawrencemilan.com and then widen that. And this other scene where it does name plus job title, Lawrence Milan Life Coach. So that way there are just a few different things happening in the first minute or so of our show. And then when I scroll all the way to the end here, remember how I had this final minute be a scene? I'm also going to scroll to the very end and add another scene and then reduce that to about 1 second. And then at the very end here, I'm going to click on this media and then drop in the graphic at the end as well. Then I'll click over here at the end and then drop in the URL. And so here's lawrencemilan.com. And then also position the music at the very end. So maybe, oops, I don't want it to cut off the whole thing. Scroll it over. It tries to be helpful, and there we go, cut off the music. Okay. I know that's a lot of steps and a lot of doing things, but this just saves us from having to use a full-blown video editor and multiple programs and steps just to have the video imported, and then we can clean up the transcript and put it in the template that we wanted. And then in a moment, we can just click on Publish, Export to Video, and create a YouTube version. But before I do that, I want to do a couple of things. So as we said, we have this project, right? So this thing we're hovering over, this 071, this is the whole project. But within a project are different sort of subdocuments, compositions. And we have this first document here called Lawrence Milan, and this is the YouTube version. And then we'll drop down, and so this other thing is one of the reels. So go to this YouTube version, and then you see how this is 19 minutes, 51 seconds? We can drop down and click on these three dots, and then duplicate, and it creates copy of 071, and we'll just take that out, and then this will be the podcast version. And remember how we said this is 19 minutes, 51 seconds? We click on this star and click on remove filler words. So there are 66 times we used and click on remove all. And then now it's trimmed off about 30 seconds. This feature I don't like to use for video because there's too much quick jumps, but for just audio, if some of these podcasts have 600 plus ums, and sometimes it turns a 40-minute recording into 30 minutes, just taking out all the ums. So now we have the thing that's most important here is the video YouTube version and then the audio podcast version. So now it's time to dump a few things out. And what I want to do before I do is, so I have the title, I have the figure out the permalink, and then I'm going to generate a summary as well. So I will go back to ChatGPT here, and I have a prompt here saying generate podcast notes. So it's looking through, and this is why we dumped it with timestamps, because it separates things into chapters, and it does find quotes, but I don't find the quote getting to be exactly helpful. I think a human still needs to do that, but still figuring out the timestamps and the summary. So we'll go here and paste this into our document, and I'll just clean this up a little bit. See how smart that is? The shift from Y to what, adapt to a changing world. Okay. And we did that. I think I want this introductory paragraph to be a little longer. So make the summary 2 to 3 paragraphs instead. Make it a little longer. So now it's maybe too long. Okay, so reduce the summary back down to 2 paragraphs. Work in a few important keywords and key phrases that a life coach would want to rank for, but be sure not to keyword stuff. Triumphant moments, profound insights, and it still made it 3 paragraphs. That's okay though. ChatGPT is not perfect. Empowerment, personal development. All right, I guess we'll just use what it gave us. We're doing a video. We don't have time to be perfect. Maybe we'll say Lawrence Milan is a life coach to helping you reshape your life perspective. You discover the power of transformative potency. It's like a high schooler writing an essay. And then, all right, so we have 3 paragraphs, that's fine. And we'll go back to Descript. And the reason why we were doing that is because we can go to Publish, Export, audio. We want to export not all the documents, just this one current composition. Export it as MP3, click on the things, and then we can put in the podcast metadata. And we go back to our document. Here's the title of the podcast, like the whole show itself. Then we go and grab the SEO title right there. Control C, Control V. And then we grab the 3-paragraph summary. We asked it to reduce to 2, but I guess ChatGPT just couldn't bear with that. So now we have paragraph and paragraph. And then artwork. This is why we dumped a JPEG version. So that way we can put in like a lower quality version of the cover right in there. And then we do not want to include markers as chapters because those were just the scenes we created. And then export, downloads, export that as an MP3. And that will just take a few minutes to do that. And so while it's doing that, let's go and dump the YouTube version. So this way it will dump the audio MP3 for us to embed on our site as a podcast, but then we'll also generate the video that we can use to publish this as a YouTube video, and then we'll also embed the YouTube on our podcast page. Sounds like a lot of steps, but here's the end result. This is the podcast site that we are running, Bestselling Author Podcast, and we have the title here, and then the podcast notes and some links and things like that. But then we also embed the YouTube video right on the page. And if we search for, not sure if this is propagated yet, but if we search like Google Podcasts or Apple Podcasts for this person's name, so here's her book, so, podcast. So maybe it has not yet. Alice Jessup. We tried earlier. So 2 S's. Alice Son Jessup. Okay. Hasn't yet propagated. But the idea is fine. Google Podcasts. So you see here that the podcast lives here on Google Podcasts. It lives here on Apple Podcasts. Here's the episodes, but then also on YouTube. So different ways for people to find us and different SEO rankings. And so that's why we have multiple formats. So we're in the YouTube version, and what we want to do is publish, export, and we want to export these subtitles. So just click on the subtitles, leave the settings as is. That will dump an SRT file that we will give to YouTube in addition to the video, and then also publish export video, and then just leave all this at the maximum quality and click on export. And then when we dump out that file, here we go, that will take a lot longer, but at least we can do a couple of things. And you must know how to upload a video to YouTube, right? Go to youtube.com, click on the plus sign, upload the video. It'll take about 23 minutes. We're not going to wait that long. But what we'll do in the meantime is go to our website. And I really like blueberry.com. And for $20 a month, they will host a podcast website for you. And it ends up just being WordPress based. So I can go and log in to this WordPress site hosted on Blueberry. And here are the existing posts. Here's the last one that we published. I can click on add new post, and then we will just fill in the various details. So I'll say, here's the SEO title, and then I'll put the timestamps on YouTube. So I'll paste in the podcast notes. And then his website is lawrence.com. Milan.com. And then we'll have a resources section with links. Heading 3. Lawrence Milan official site. Pardon me. Prospering. Book co-authored. CT. And then one moment while I grab another link of his off in some other tab. So this other link is going to be Lost Love in a Leap Facebook. So we'll add in, add in that link in a new window, and then grab his website URL there. And then we also had Prospering. New tab. Okay. So, all right, what else? Next, we also want to plug in the permalink and a shortened link for graphics. I don't even feel like explaining that. But anyway, I'm going to take this. They said the link is Life Coach Lawrence Mallon. Edit Life Coach Lawrence Mallon. And then I'll have a shortened link for when we make the graphics later. So that way someone can get to his episode just from a really short, quick link. So then we're almost done, I promise. Now we go to this podcast episode media URL, upload media file, select file, then upload the audio that we saved from Descript. Speaking of Descript, 3 minutes remaining on the video, so maybe there will be time to get to that part of it. And so now, sure, generate transcript for me, and then fill in the iTunes information, and then that is it. You just click on publish. And I know there was a lot of steps. Took a video recording, put it into Descript, went and grabbed some quotes, some timestamps, dumped out the transcript, put it into ChatGPT. Had ChatGPT give us some possible titles for the show. Had ChatGPT write us some podcast notes for the show. Then we can visit the site. And now on the site, there's this audio player where someone can right this instant play the audio version, and it for sure does not end up on Google Podcasts that quickly, but I think within a couple of hours it will be there. And then, let's see, we have about 1 minute remaining on the Descript side of things. So then let me just go to YouTube and switch over to the best-selling author podcast accounts. And then I will go to this plus sign, upload video. And I don't think we can go any further until the less than a minute, 96% is remaining. And this is generating, just like it generated the transcripts, the video clips, the audio, subtitles, and all that. The MP4 will appear here. I've saved it to my downloads folder. So in a moment here, once it gets to 100%, it will save that MP4 video to my downloads folder, and I'll just put it up there on YouTube. 98%, 99%. Great, video export completed. Then I can just go to YouTube, select files. Here's the MP4. And then as it's uploading, we fill in those details again. So here we go. Path to a fulfilling life. and then the podcast notes, and we'll probably leave in those timestamps. Leave in the resources, sure. Fixed everything. Okay, not. Fix some line breaks. That in the description, and then upload thumbnail. When we will use the JPEG that we dumped out, click on next, add subtitles, upload file, plug in the SRT, done, next, public, now, publish, and it is still uploading, still processing. I think the uploading's done. Now it's processing, so it's safe to close this tab. And then we can just go and see on this view on YouTube, right click and copy link address, and then go over to the episode that we just published and edit that. And then after this first paragraph, I can just paste the YouTube link and it will just embed it just like that. We can update that. And there we go. There's the whole walkthrough of now we have a podcast episode posted on our podcast site with a YouTube video. And that was all possible thanks to this cool tool called Descript that allows us to edit a video in lots of different ways and upload it in many different formats. Robert Plank, using Descript, DFY Podcast. Hope you had a lot of fun watching. I sure did. Bye for now.